New York's in the house.
There's trouble.
No, that's okay. Just hold on to it. Thanks. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start by thanking my colleagues, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, Pascal, and Capter, for being champions, for being advocates, for being leaders on such an important issue. We are here to talk about an effort to make our financial system more accessible and more equitable. Today, 1 in 4 Americans and nearly half of Black and Latino households are unbanked or underbanked, either because the community doesn't have a bank or because they don't have funds to access banking services. This inequity affects rural and urban communities alike. 90% of zip codes without banks are in rural areas, and banks are rarely found in low-income neighborhoods. That leaves families in those communities with nowhere to turn but to predatory lenders, predatory practices, who charge them interest rates that can be 20 times higher than the average credit card interest rate. Right now, these unbanked families are forced to spend $100 billion every year on payday loans, check cashing services, and even overdraft fees just to access their own hard-earned money. This, unfortunately, pushes more and more families into a never-ending cycle of poverty. Many have also had to forfeit part of their stimulus checks to these services. It is expensive to be poor in America. We have to change that, and we can start by using a service that's already in every zip code, the U.S. Postal Service. The U.S. Postal Service has the real estate, the workforce, the know-how, the experience, and the authority to do this. They already process $20 billion in money orders every year and are well equipped to expand these services to offer other non-bank financial services. Today, we are calling for a pilot program to provide non-bank financial services, including surcharge-free ATMs, wire transfers, cash checking, and bill payment at post office locations in at least 5 urban and at least 5 rural zip codes. In New York, these pilot programs could run everywhere from rural upstate communities where banks have been replaced with costly automatic kiosks to the Bronx, where in some neighborhoods 3 in 10 families do not have access to bank accounts despite living just miles from the financial center of the world. This pilot program will not only help us begin to address systemic inequality in the financial system, but it will also create a much-needed source of revenue for the U.S. Postal Service. We are asking that the fiscal year 2022 Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Bill allocate $6 million to the U.S. Postal Service to carry out these pilot programs. In 2015, the U.S. Postal Service Office of the Inspector General found that offering these expanded financial services at the U.S. Postal Service would generate $1.1 billion in annual revenue for the U.S. Postal Service after 5 years. This pilot program will allow us to take a critical step towards reintroducing postal banking. Putting a nonprofit bank in every post office would generate up to $9 billion of revenue each year for the U.S. Postal Service, allowing it to remain operational without making cuts to services or raising prices. And it would allow people of every income level to access low-cost banking services like small dollar checking, savings accounts, and low-interest loans. Those services will allow them to access capital and begin to accrue wealth and help us put payday lenders and other predatory businesses out of business overnight. Expanding financial services at the post office is an elegant and simple solution to the challenges our postal system and our financial system are facing. And we already know that it works. The U.S. Postal Service offered postal banking from 1911 to 1966, and it helped millions of low-income families survive and make it through the Great Depression and 2 world wars. It's America's most successful experiment in financial inclusion ever. At a time when the U.S. Postal Service is in desperate need of more revenue, and growing number of families in both urban and rural America are in desperate need for access to basic banking, this is a perfect solution that I urge my colleagues to support. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague in New York, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you so much, Senator Gillibrand, and thank you to my colleagues, Congresswoman Capter and Congressman Pascrell. I'm so excited for us to be introducing this bill, but in a way we shouldn't say introducing, we should be reintroducing postal banking to the United States. And this issue is particularly meaningful to me. You know, just 3 or 4 years ago, I was waitressing in downtown Manhattan, and I worked for Cash Tips. And at the end of my shift, I would have, $100 in tips or so, or after a couple days, there would be a couple $100 in cash in my bag. I'd hop on the 6 train, and then I'd go home to my community in the Bronx. And across the street from where I live and around the corner from where I now live in the Bronx, there's a check cashing place. And I can't tell you how many families I see go in and they can't afford to be banked. Think about that. How many millions of people in this country that either can't afford to be banked or struggle to be banked. And so they'll show up to a check cashing place. And imagine cashing your stimulus check and having for $1,400 and having 10 to 20% of that check taken away from you. Those are diapers, that's baby formula, and that's food that is taken out of the hands of families just to cash a check. And by the way, it's not because families don't want to be banked, but it's because banks won't bank them, because it's not profitable enough to bank certain communities to the level that they need. So reintroducing postal banking, it serves so many needs. And as Senator Gillibrand mentioned, and as my colleagues will say here, is that this isn't an urban issue or a rural issue. This is an issue that impacts all communities in this country and all families in this country. And what we're asking for is pretty simple. When you go to the bank to mail what you need to mail, to buy stamps, to take a photo or file for your passport, that you're just able to do a few more things. To wire funds, if you need to wire funds, to cash a check. These are very basic things, basic services that can be expanded, that can change families' lives. Oh, and by the way, to be able to use an ATM without having a bunch of money taken out when you're gonna just take out a couple of dollars. Even if you're not at a check cashing place in New York City, you go to a bodega, and you know when a community is struggling, when an ATM allows you to withdraw in $5 increments. So imagine you go to an ATM to take out a $5 increment and they charge you a $3 fee. This is what Americans are dealing with, and it is completely unacceptable. It doesn't have to be this way. And not only that, but the Postal Service is awesome. We love the Postal Service. Americans love the Postal Service. They want to protect the Postal Service. They want to expand the Postal Service. And this bill does just that, raising over $1 billion in revenue for our postal services so that everyone from our babies to our seniors can continue to enjoy the services that they provide. So I'm honored to be a part of this effort. Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Thank you, Congresswoman Capter and Congressman Pascrell. And I'm so excited to be a part of this because it's just the right thing to do. Thank you.
Perfectly said.
I'm Congressman Bill Pascrell from the 9th District of New Jersey, and I'm honored to be here with the great senator from New York, Gillibrand, and of course Congresswoman Marcy Capter and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, always working on practical things. Today, there's more than 68 million Americans are shut out from mainstream banking services by high fees, from minimum balances to overdrafts, you've heard it, direct deposit fees, and ATM surcharges. Others live in bank deserts without a bank or a credit union altogether. Underbanked Americans are left to unregulated, predatory payday lenders. Literally crooks. Not all of them, but many of them. Payday lenders, check cashiers that level obscene interest rates to those folks who use them day in and day out. Where else are you going to go? This system further cements the economic inequality, tearing our country apart. If I may pause, with your permission, Madam Senator, I've been on the post office case for a long time. Not satisfied with the results. This is not a solution looking for a problem. This is a big problem. And particularly now, when people aren't getting their mail on time. I mean, the post office, we're asking that the post office take on another responsibility, actually. I think our intentions are excellent, but the source is questionable. So the post office, I think, is in a unique position to fill the gap with branches in every zip code. From my town of Patterson to the Key West, Florida, to Barrow, Alaska, Postal Reach opens a world of opportunity. United States Postal Service, IG, and we ought to read what the IG has to say about this post office over the last 5 years. They're perfectly positioned to implement check cashing, bill payment, and surcharge-free ATMs. This would generate over $1 billion in new revenue within 5 years. The big issue, of course, is how we're going to fund the post office, because we have to get out of the debt-ridden way we do it right now. 90% of zip codes without a bank or credit union are in rural areas. Bank branches are also sparse in low-income urban areas. Like car business used to be in our towns, no more car entities except New York. Bank branches are also sparse in low-income urban areas. Approximately 46% of Latino and 49% of Black American households are underbanked. Postal banking is a rare issue in our politics. Today, they should unite both Democrats and Republicans, urban and rural Americans alike. The United States Postal Service already has statutory authority to expand banking services tomorrow morning. Millions could benefit, and the Postal Service could see an economic boom if only the Postmaster General would say so. My friend, the Postmaster General. Last Congress, the House approved 2 of our amendments providing funds for pilot programs, but they were not included in the final bills. This year, we must muscle our plans across the goal line. We all know the post office is in turmoil. The previous administration tried to dismantle the United States Post Office and left catastrophic damage to this post office. Mr. DeJoy has committed deliberate sabotage to our post office. Mr. DeJoy should be fired and removed to the curb with his bags waiting. On January 25th, I called on President Biden to fire the entire United States Postal Service Board of Governors. They're the ones that make the choice. They're the ones that choose the person who's going to be the postmaster. The Board of Governors. Incredibly, the board continues to support the Joy's mayhem. They're complicit. Over 50 House members now support their removal. The whole top of the House must be cleaned out. Then begins the work of rebuilding our beloved post office. Postal banking is essential to that rebuilding. It is key to preserving the post office. It will help this institution flourish into the next century. Postal banking must be part of America's future. I'm honored to be here. This may not be the most sexy issue we're talking about.
I think it is.
But the senator does. But anyway, and we're going to work hard to get this done, and I appreciate working with all of you. Thanks for letting me into this group.
Thank you, Bill.
And I know we're going to accomplish it. I feel very confident. Thank you very much. And now my buddy from Ohio, Congresswoman Cantor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Congressman Pascrell. Thank you for your great support in the House last year when we passed a bill, along with Congressman Pascrell's support, as well as Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thank you so much for your new energy and your commitment where it really matters. And Senator Gillibrand, thank you. Thank you for hosting us on this beautiful afternoon here on the Senate side. We're more than thrilled to be with you because we all stand for the inclusiveness of all Americans in affordable, non-bank financial services offered by the post office. And we're here today to say that though in the House last year we were able to pass the $2 million through the Appropriations Committee for a pilot program that dealt with restarting non-bank financial services at a given number of post offices. This year, we're going to ask for $6 million because we think we can get it passed. And we hope that this pilot program will work in both urban America and rural America. If you come to my district, I could take you to a building where the individuals who live in it cannot function without wheelchairs. They have no financial services. What happens to them is if they receive a check, let's say a Social Security check because they don't have a bank, they get in their motorized wheelchairs and they go up the street and they have to go to a corner store to cash the check. And like Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez says, they pay a huge fee. And then they get the change, whatever's left, they put in their pocket. And then if they want to buy a cigarette, which none of us smoke, but some of them do, and they're charged 50 cents a cigarette in that store, they leave having lost a great deal of their money in the check transaction and also whatever they buy. They get in their wheelchairs and their motorized chairs and they go up the street and some of them get robbed on the way home. How would you like to live like that? So the effort that we made last year came to the Senate, and because Senator Gillibrand was not in charge at that point, our bill, after having fought for it for so many years, was killed, and I'll be specific, by Republicans in the Senate. And that is not going to happen this year. That is not going to happen. So we are very grateful for your being here. You're helping us be voices for nearly 70 million Americans who have no financial services. 70 million. Over half of the African American community and Latino communities in this country do not have normal financial services. We want to give them a small number of those services, as Senator Gillibrand says, in every zip code in the country. We have support from the American Postal Workers Union, Take on Wall Street, and by the way, I'm very honored to be with two representatives from the financial center of the world, and you care about this. That means a lot for those of us who come from Mudville, way out in the middle part of the country where most people don't even know where it is. So I'm very honored to stand with three people from the East Coast. Public Citizen has supported our efforts, the ACLU, and so many others. So I'm very optimistic. We know that with the pandemic, the situation has become much more difficult for millions of families. And I'll be honest with you, grandmothers in my district want to buy U.S. savings bonds and not do it through the computer, but they want to be able to give their grandchild a U.S. savings bond in an envelope. And one of my goals is to make sure that they can get them through the U.S. Postal Service, okay? So many of those who need services live in, I think Bill said, financial deserts. And boy, if you don't think those places exist, I welcome you to Ohio's 9th District. Come with me. I'll take you to places you've never seen. Others have talked about payday lenders and the amount of money that is extracted from people through things like auto title loans and all kinds of strange creations where people are bilked of their real wealth and caused to pay high interest rates, usurious rates, over 20%. So thankfully the Postal Service is willing. I was a former letter carrier myself. There's no question the Postal Service is the most trusted federal institution, and we know that from our constituents, and I appreciate your being here because I know across America, the American people are cheering us for caring about what matters to them. And so we know that this has worked before. It can work again. I thank you so very much for supporting our effort to create a $6 million pilot program starting in fiscal year 2022 with the concurrence of the House and Senate as we move through our regular legislation this year. Thank you so very much, and I thank my colleagues for being with us here today.
Thank you. All right. We're happy to answer on-topic questions for any of us. Go ahead. Yeah. To put it back. Yeah. So it was Lyndon Johnson, and it was part of his streamline of government approach back in the 1960s. And unfortunately, he erased public postal banking without any public debate. There was no debate, there was no discussion. It just ended with a whimper. And I think if there had been a debate, he perhaps would not have ended it. Also, I think this is something the banks will fight against. But it's absurd to fight against because these are customers they will not service. Even customers who want to be serviced, they will not service them. New York has so many good restrictions. We've got basic banking requirements. We've got no payday lenders. But still, in New York State, about 30% of our population is unbanked or underbanked. So there is still this whole group of people, a third of our state, cannot get access to the banking services they need or have less of the banking services that they need. So it's an idea whose time has come. It meets a severe need, especially post-pandemic, where so many people have lost their income, lost their jobs, and are struggling to make ends meet. And if you have to then add to all of that the usury practices and the predatory practices that take away their hard-earned money, it will be devastating. So we need this as part of the Build Back Better agenda. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for everyone, but I wouldn't be surprised if all of us want him to be replaced because he is so ineffective in his job. And I do think there is a movement to name the other people on the board to vote him out. So hopefully he will not be the Postmaster General when this bill passes. If he is, Congress will give him lots of instructions about what his job is to do.
And I would just add to that, if I could,
Yes,
the President Biden has already made 3 new appointments to the board, which help it to be more representative of the full range of people that live in this country. And there will be another seat coming up soon, and my personal candidate for that is former Congresswoman Mary Rose Okar of Ohio, who's loaded for bear and used to chair the committee in the House, and she will have them all running after themselves because she knows what she's doing. So I just thought I'd put that on the record.
Thank you, Marcy. Very helpful. Other questions for any of us? Go ahead. Yes, I have. This is something that is being received very favorably by leadership. And I don't know, is it part of Biden's platform anywhere? I don't think so, but I don't think he's opposed to it. We've heard nothing negative from the White House from this idea. And because we have the list of support from labor and from people who care about these issues, communities who need this service, I think it's got the political will behind it that I hopefully will have no opposition from the White House. Other questions? Great. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
I can stay for off-topic if people have off-topic, but you guys can stay or go as you please. Thank you. Thank you, guys. It was so great.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great.